What comes to mind when you think of Afghanistan? Most likely, men with AK-47s, women in burqas, drug addicts, and injured children. The British Empire, the Soviet Union, and later the US attempted to conquer Afghanistan, yet no country in history has been able to do it. Why is Afghanistan so important to everyone? Instead of a prosperous country with fantastic tourism and developed agriculture, all we see are drugs and endless wars. How did Afghanistan, once a sunny intersection of nations, become a graveyard of empires? And what secrets and dangers does it hide from us? Let's sort it out. Right now, Afghanistan is ruled by the Taliban, an organization which no country officially recognizes, yet its leaders participate in official negotiations. Moreover, the Taliban continues to be regarded as a terrorist organization by at least 11 countries, including the US, China, and Canada. In 10 years, more than 6 million people left the country. Here's the footage of the last American plane leaving Afghanistan after 20 years of war. Fighting there is no longer a profession. It has become a way of living. But if we rewind half a century, despite being poor, Afghan was quite safe. Happy tourists in stylish suits and women with children in colorful dresses used to step off planes at Kabul International Airport. And the locals, including the country's ruler, were greeted with honors by the capital of the United States. So what happened? And why are the great powers so obsessed with Afghanistan? Maybe it has ports that are beneficial for economic growth. Well, no. In fact, it has never had access to the sea. Perhaps there's gold or oil. In comparison to its neighbors like Iran, Turkmenistan, or Uzbekistan, it has none of those resources. Then what makes this country so special? There's a famous quote, "Geography is destiny." And Afghanistan's destiny is to be the only land corridor between Central Asia and India towards the Persian Gulf. So whoever controls Afghanistan can immediately influence India, Pakistan, Central Asia, and ultimately Russia. That's why a country with a GDP several times smaller than Jeff Bezos' personal fortune continues to dominate global headlines for decades. But remember, in the beginning, I mentioned that Afghanistan has a far more famous nickname, the Graveyard of Empires. That's because anyone who considers themselves the strongest in the world will eventually attempt to conquer Afghan. First of all, any war is a dirty business where almost everyone tries to make money. And secondly, Afghanistan is a perfect example of when a country and its population are largely disregarded. It is only needed to fulfill geopolitical ambitions and for someone to profit. It all started when the British Empire tried to take control of Afghanistan in 1839. One of the main reasons was the rivalry with the Soviet Union. At first, things go smoothly for the British Empire. The soldiers capture major Afghan cities like Kabul and Kandahar without much trouble. But then, the locals decide they've had enough of strangers interfering. Everybody rose in a powerful movement, fighting against the British. It was a fierce struggle for independence, and the Afghans showed incredible courage. Finally, the British realized they couldn't win this war. They signed a treaty in Rawalpindi granting full independence to Afghanistan. Another empire that tried to take over Afghan is the Soviet Union, with the thought of expanding its empire. However, the Afghan fighters, which were fewer in number, showed resistance. Their secret was guerrilla warfare. It's a type of strategy when the smaller force avoids direct, large-scale confrontations with the enemy and instead relies on surprise attacks, hit-and-run tactics, and ambushes to disrupt the enemy's operations and morale. They operated like ninjas in the night. Moreover, the Afghans knew every little rock of their mountains, which, by the way, are more than 80% of the land. The war lasted almost 10 years. The Soviet Union lost between $5 to $20 billion and more than 15,000 Soviet soldiers. Additionally, another 60,000 were wounded. Enough of wars. Let's get back to Afghanistan. Not many know this, but the country is very rich in resources. For instance, in 2019, the Afghan Ministry of Mines and Petroleum estimated the total value of the country's natural resources at $3 trillion, including not only copper, but also iron ore, coal, and most importantly, lithium. According to the Pentagon, Afghanistan is considered the Saudi Arabia of lithium, and lithium is a key component for all kinds of batteries, especially considering the world's transition to electric vehicles. Another vast resource is opium. Opium is the main element in global heroin production. As of 2019, Afghanistan accounted for 92% of the global opium market, producing almost all of the world's heroin. This is the basis of the country's economy. For example, in 2014, the profit from opiate sales constituted 60% of Afghanistan's GDP. This has always been the case, no matter who tried to solve this problem. For instance, in the 1970s, Afghanistan produced 300 tons of opium per year, and with the arrival of Soviet forces, the opium harvest increased to 1,500 tons. Further, the production rose to 5,000 or 6,000 tons of opium. The only year this number reduced was 2001, and albeit for only a very short period. After the Soviet Union had withdrawn from Afghanistan, a civil war erupted, and some of the fiercest battles took place in the Kandahar region. Criminal groups terrorized the population until the spring of '94, when a group of locals decided they'd had enough and recruited this man, Mohammed Omar, who had fought against the Soviets. He gathered students and took control of their area, and eventually the entire Kandahar region. This group became known as the Taliban. The word Taliban translates from Arabic as students. As a united force, they brought peace to Kandahar for the first time in many years. This is precisely why many people supported them. The Taliban began advancing throughout the country, gaining control over vast territories. From a volunteer movement, they quickly transformed into a large organization capable of self-financing, collecting taxes, and receiving kickbacks from the opium trade. In September of '96, the Taliban marched into Kabul and took control of Afghanistan for the first time. They will lose it again, but this time to the Americans. The main goal was to remove the Taliban from power, but as history says, it isn't wise to mess with Afghanistan. So after 20 years, the United States also left the country with defeat. The Taliban comes to power almost unopposed, signing their first official document on August 19, 2021, a declaration of victory over the British Empire, the Soviet Union, and the USA. Here's one question for you. If Afghanistan is so rich in resources, why does it remain poor? In fact, they are so poor, there isn't enough money for food and necessities to the extent that even hotels lack heating. Well, apart from the constant wars, there are some serious reasons. One of them is the country isn't truly unified. Well, judge for yourself. It's a country with diverse inhabitants: Pashtuns, Tajiks, Uzbeks, and Hazars. But wait, what about Islam? Yes, that's the only thing that globally unites them, but it doesn't eliminate the potential opposition. However, the main root of evil is the outsiders. Why? Let's see what Winston Churchill writes about his British army. "We proceeded systematically, village by village, and we destroyed the houses, filled up the wells, blew down the towers, cut down the great shady trees, burned the crops, and broke the reservoirs in punitive devastation." Meanwhile, Winston himself calls Afghans savages, barbarians, and a degenerate race living on the fringes of humanity. Now imagine that strong foreign guys keep coming to your house trying to impose their order. The result? There's no peaceful population left. Every peasant hides a gun to protect themselves and their homes. Every woman takes a knife in her hands, and every child grows up ready to kill a foreigner. Unfortunately, it's the regular people who are paying the price. They have no other option and are either left fighting or become supporters of fighting. So what conclusion can we draw about Afghanistan? It will undoubtedly remain one of the world's main problems. However, these problems have been aggravated by the great powers due to their greed. The question is, will they continue to profit from Afghan or leave these places alone and try to simply listen? One thing is certain, no matter how much they try to burn and bury the land, Afghanistan's soil will always sprout again. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, write in the comments about which country should we make the following video.